Where does forgiveness come in this whole journey? Because the idea of forgiving someone who's done such horrible things to you, does it start there or does it start somewhere else?
Oh, most definitely forgiveness. And that's another thing. Forgiveness is not for that other person. Forgiveness is for you. Because once again, you keep hearing me mention God. I believe in a creator that created this earth. We didn't just wake up. That's something else that I need people to realize. You don't just wake up on your own. Some may think you do, but let's be rational about this. You don't just wake up on your own. You didn't just get here on your own. There's something greater that wakes you up each and every day. So let's start thanking that individual for waking us up. That's a privilege within and of itself. So that same individual that forgives us for the things that we do, you got to forgive in order to be forgiven.
Hi, I'm Glennis Woods Mullins, and I love to help women to vibe, to be more vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered in midlife. So come on, let's vibe. You know, I heard a statistic not too long ago about the fact that every hour there is one woman who is killed either by their partner or by their spouse. And when I heard that, I could not believe it, that at this day and age, that these kinds of things are still happening. And it might be even more frequently than that. Those are the ones we know about. Those are the ones that are reported. But we also know that there is a large amount of women who never report their abuse, never tell anyone what they're going through. And some of them die with their pain in terms of actually sharing it. And even in midlife, with all the wisdom that we're supposed to have, there are still women who are living in abusive situations. I thought it was important to talk about this. So there was a wonderful woman I met on one of those networking calls that I like to go to sometimes. Her name is Lynette Mason. And she is a motivational speaker and founder of Divine Restorations. And Miss Mason is in a life space that she never thought she would find herself in through a domestic violence incident that she sustained, which gave her a brain injury when she was struck on the head. For the last 19 years, Miss Mason has struggled and often did not recognize herself as she dealt with the hatred for the man who did it to her. And finally, through forgiveness, it has allowed her to move on. And although Miss Mason still has seizures and headaches, she still is claiming full healing through God, and she is now able to have peace. And that's why she started her own organization, Divine Restorations. And, you know, it's such an amazing story. I'm going to call you, is it Davine or Divine?
Davine.
Veen. Okay, I'm gonna call you Veen. I know your middle name is Lynette, but I'm so glad to have you here. Your story is amazing and needs to be told. It's wonderful to have you here on the V.I.B.E Living Podcast today.
Thank you for having me, Miss Lennis. It's so great to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. And you said something, I'm quoting you. You said, I'm here to show women what strength and resilience looks like. Through it all, we are not survivors. We are thrivers. Why do you say that?
Oh, because at one point in time, I had lost myself. I didn't even recognize who I was. You could ask me, what color did I like? And I wouldn't even be able to tell you. You could ask me what I liked doing. I wouldn't be able to tell you. I would look in the mirror and I didn't even recognize myself. I lost myself and it was surviving. But now I'm not only just surviving, I'm thriving. Just to even be here talking to you, such a powerful woman, just to be here and want to advocate for other women, that's thriving.
Absolutely.
I went from a place where I was just barely making it, a place where I was literally trying to kill myself. I was institutionalized in a mental institute 3 times for trying to commit suicide. I'm a single mother of 6, plus a dog, so I say 7. A single mother of 7. And now I can sit back and realize through all of the situations that I went through, I was never alone. God was with me all of those times, but you couldn't tell me that because I truly felt like I was alone. And those times, sleepless nights, times when I couldn't literally get out of bed due to depression, severe depression, PTSD, anxiety, you name it. I felt worthless. Just like I said, I didn't know who I was.
Wow. Let's kind of go back a little bit and let's talk about your story in terms of what brought you to this place. You said you were, I guess you were in a marriage,
No, my children's father.
your children's father. Okay.
Mhm.
And what happened there? When did the abuse start? Was it something that was always ongoing? And then if it wasn't, why did it begin to escalate?
So I was with him for 9 years, and yes, it was a abusive relationship for the 9 years. I started going with him when I was 19 years old, and we had our first child when I was 20. But it was abusive for that full 9 years. We have 3 children together. I had my first when I was 16. I became a mom when I was 16 years old. That was not an abusive relationship, and it's funny. I didn't experience this with my parents. Last year was their 50th anniversary. So I didn't grow up in a household where I saw abuse. So it's like, where did this come from?
Mhm.
So it's like my father was a provider, never raised his voice, never abused me, never abused my mother, never stepped out on my mother. I didn't see this.
Mhm.
So it's like, we're going to stop that stereotype right there, because a lot of people be like, oh, that's what they saw in us. No, absolutely not. So it's like, one thing I can say, when my parents met my children's father, they saw him, they were like, absolutely no, we do not want you with him. And the more that they said no, I said, absolutely yes. I was kind of like sheltered, and he was from the streets. He was a drug dealer. And I was like, yep, that's what I want. Don't ask me why. My father was a hardworking man who provided. My mother was a hardworking woman. But I think it was the fact that I was overly sheltered. And he was like the wildcat. Now I was attracted to it for whatever reason. And like I said, the more they said no, the more I said yes. I was hard headed, and I learned my lesson the hard way. So,
Mhm.
like I said, we were together for 9 years. And something else that I'm going to tell you, he was abused by his father. He saw this in his household. His mother was severely abused by his father. His dad, come to find out, was in the army. So he was very strict. He was a cheater. So everything that he saw his father do is what he learned to do and kind of like traded down. So that's what he did to me. He abused our son and all of that kind of stuff. So it was like ingrained in him. Some people would want to say, why don't you stop it? Learn patterns, learn behavior. That's what he knew to do. Unfortunately, he didn't have a male figure to teach him any better. That ran in his family. Generational curses, they truly do exist.
Right. What was the final caveat that made you decide to get out of that situation and seek help?
I was forced out of it. I told him I knew he was a cheater. I knew he was a dog, and I dealt with that. I was breaking my parents' heart. They wanted me out of this relationship. I'm black eyes and bruises and all of these kind of things that they're running over to his house. It was a mess. And through it all, I'm still staying with him. But I told him, the one thing that you ever make a baby on me, I'm out of here. And he did that. He had a child outside of our relationship. And I was like, okay, that's it. Done deal breaker. And the fact that you're doing what? You're leaving me? And he couldn't handle that. And I'm like, yes, sir, I can show you better than I can tell you.
Mhm.
And I don't know why that was a deal breaker for me in my mind. But I'm like, you really overstepped it with me. I'm dealing with you putting your hands on me. You're abusing me. You choking me out in front of my kids and things like that. You're abusing our child. I'm taking beatings because you're abusing my child. I'm like, you can put your hands on me, but putting your hands on my child, absolutely not. But to make a child outside of our relationship,
Mhm.
no. And he couldn't deal with the fact that I actually moved on. I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, no. Never once did I cheat on him in our relationship, but once I closed the door to him, I opened up the door to somebody else. And then that kind of like true narcissistic behavior, he couldn't handle that.
Mhm.
So that was the incident that led to the disaster. So that was the we'll just say that led to what led to me having the traumatic brain injury and
Ah.
me having the grand mal seizures. it,
Mhm.
it, it wasn't good because he committed an act of violence against me and an act of violence against someone else. And
Mhm.
that's why he's serving 28 years in prison. now.
Okay, so I was going to ask him, was he even incarcerated?
He is.
So now you're at a point where you have suffered emotionally and now physically
Yes.
and dealing with the pain of all that. What was your diagnosis when it came to your overall emotional health? What kind of diagnoses were they giving you?
Severe PTSD. I have both long-term and short-term memory loss behind this traumatic brain injury,
Mhm,
severe depression,
mhm,
anxiety disorder.
mhm.
I
Oh,
lost.
you lost a lot. So now, fast forwarding to where you are now, because I know there's a whole journey that you went on. How did you keep going in that journey? What kinds of things did you do to motivate yourself? Where did you go to seek help?
Thank God for my kids.
Hmm.
They're my biggest motivators because if it had not have been for them, I probably truly and honestly would not be here because I'm like, I can't give up. This isn't going to be fair to them, number one. But I'm going to take a step back. Those times when I did try to commit suicide, you notice I'm still here. God is like, absolutely not. I brought you through all of this for a reason. There's a greater purpose in you. And I just keep remembering that. When I was in the mental institute, there was one time I can remember for some reason he had me get a notebook. And it was in the mental institute where divine restoration came into play.
Mhm.
I'm talking about down to the colors, down to the name. Everything came when I was in that mental institute
You say colors, what do you mean?
of what the building is supposed to look like. He told me everything.
Okay.
Who I'm supposed to be serving, what I'm supposed to be serving. He told me I didn't allow you to go through all of this for nothing. There's
We have
purpose.
we have similar experiences when I was sent to a respite for a week just to get some rest because I had been diagnosed with the anxiety disorder. And my boss and my colleagues, they were all like, you need to rest. You need to take some
Mhm.
time off. And the only thing I could take with me was a journal. I couldn't take my books, couldn't take my pagers, my computer, none of that. And this was 18 years ago. And it was in that respite where I really began to start thinking about the fact of what I needed to do to heal. And one of the things I knew I needed to do was to take off more time from my job. And when the time came for me to return, I didn't because I knew that that would be a trigger and a setup. And it wasn't just the job, it was accumulation of things, but it all started with how my mother was killed. She was hit by a fire truck on her way to a board meeting. And the way I found out about it was very traumatic, extremely traumatic. And that is really began my, descent into the abyss of trying to control the outcome, never having any surprises, always being in charge of everything. And I lived like that for 20 years. And I used to wake up every morning and feel like I was going straight downhill in a roller coaster with no restraints. Just, this huge feeling. It was like horrible. And the only thing that would stop it would be coffee. In fact, that's when I started drinking coffee was when I started experiencing that. But even with that, I kept pushing it back, not dealing with it. Till
Mhm.
finally, kind of like that emotion, that analogy about a closet,
Mhm.
you put so many things into your closet. Then one day you open up to take one more thing out or put one more thing in, and it just all came
Mhm.
out. And so that's how I ended up with the respite, and that began my journey. And it took years, but I did leave my job, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now because I started my business, in wellness for women over
Mhm.
40 with the idea that I didn't want women to go through what I went through. I wanted women to be educated in terms of the possibilities of what might be going on with you instead of being in denial. And if not, having this be a cautionary tale, not dealing with your symptoms or your situation is going to put you in that trajectory that will eventually end your life.
Yes.
So, when you were in the facilities and getting ready to go out again, what were the kinds of things that you were thinking about in terms of what was going to be different the next time around?
Had to prepare myself because first of all, I fear facing the world because I'm like, that's the biggest thing that domestic violence survivors and thrivers go through judgment. The
Mm,
world is looking at you. Well, why did you stay? Why didn't you leave? And the would have, should have, could have, having to prepare myself mentally to what I'm going back to,
mm,
living with regrets, dealing with my kids emotionally. I'm like, it's one of me. and it's at that time it was four of my kids. My twins came later, but I'm like having to deal with their emotions. How are they going to look at me? Dealing with their thoughts, still trying to be a mom to them and raise them, but yet going through my own physical stuff, dealing. And funny enough, it's like his family blamed me for what happened too, because he chose to go to trial and they didn't want me to testify. What do you mean? I was subpoenaed. I had to testify. And in all actuality, he did what he did. What do you want me to do?
My goodness, you're the victim. But therein lies part of the issue. They're in denial about who he is and the issues that he had, just like they're probably in denial of, the issues that they had that might contribute to that. And, denial is one of the main components of mental health, is when we're going through something and we push back, or even our own health, especially with women, because we have so many things to do. And looking back and looking at where you are now, what is it that you want women to know who are going through something similar? What is it? What kind of advice can you give them?
Put yourself first. You deserve better. Nobody deserves to be treated like a dog. Not even a dog deserves to be treated like that. It is okay for you to leave. You do not have to stay in a situation where somebody is treating you where doggone well, you do not deserve to be treated like that. There are resources out there that's available to you. If you do not feel safe, first of all, it's not easy. And I'm not going to sit there and lie to you. It's not going to be easy, but you're going to have to put on your big girl panties and ask for help. A lot of times we don't feel comfortable asking for help. And then the devil's going to talk to you. No, don't do this. Don't do that. Shut them down. In the name of Jesus, I got to do this for my own self. If you have kids, for my kids, it's not safe. There's women that are dying left and right. There's women that's still left with traumas. You may not make it out, but you have to. Or you may not make it out and still have your kids that are looking up to you happy about things. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, my kids have forgiven me. But what if your kids choose not to? And that's their right. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have to feel comfortable with those, because you may have those tough conversations. You're going to have to deal with that because your children went through that with you. They have emotions too.
And they saw all of that, right? They saw all that were going on. Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, I wasn't able to handle those conversations. But guess what? I took them through that because I could have left and I didn't. Mm-hmm. And I had to go through that and I had to take that. And it was hard.
Well, you mentioned when I was reading your bio, something about forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Where does forgiveness come in this whole journey? Because the idea of forgiving someone who's done such horrible things to you, does it start there or does it start somewhere else?
Oh, most definitely forgiveness. And that's another thing. Forgiveness is not for that other person. Forgiveness is for you. Because once again, you keep hearing me mention God. I believe in a creator that created this earth. We didn't just wake up. That's something else that I need people to realize. You don't just wake up on your own. Some may think you do, but let's be rational about this. You don't just wake up on your own. You didn't just get here on your own. There's something greater that wakes you up each and every day. So let's start thanking that individual for waking us up. That's a privilege within and of itself. So that same individual that forgives us for the things that we do, you got to forgive in order to be forgiven. So it's not about that other individual. It's about yourself. And that's something that we're going to lead into. I've forgiven my children's father. I actually speak to him now. That's made me whole. And I'm able to talk to him and call him a friend. Mm-hmm. And in all actuality, he's saved now. And a lot of individuals be like, oh, they go to jail and that's jail talk. No, in all actuality, no. Because when I say I took this man and I'm going to say to hell and back with the vicious words, because my mouth, thank God I'm not where I used to be. Mm-hmm. I actually wrote a letter to the judge. If I could have had him hung, I would have. That's how much I hated him. Mm-hmm. For what he did to me, because I'm like, each time I fall and have a seizure, it just sparks, and brings me back. I'm not there anymore because in the mighty name of Jesus, I'm claiming my healing.
Where
I'm
did
no
the
longer
hatred
there.
go? Where did you put the hatred? Where did it go?
I send it back to Satan. Satan, you tried to destroy me. You did that since I was little.
Mm.
No, because I got women to go out there and grab. No, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not playing with you.
I heard something very interesting once about unforgiveness and
Mhm.
anger, hatred, all those negative emotions. That if you really want to get blessed, you have to clear the space in order for
Yes,
the blessings to come.
that's
And
something else.
clearing the space, one way to do it, to make room for that, is to get rid of the unforgiveness,
Mhm.
anger, and the hatred, because that takes up so much space.
It does.
It also takes a lot of energy to feel that way, and it can make you sick as well.
Mhm.
Now, how is your health now? You've it's been some years now, and
Mhm.
I assume you're always in some stage of recovery. But how is your health now? How is your life?
Oh, I'm climbing. I'm getting better and better and better each day. I haven't had a seizure. Well, I had one last month, and that was because I was working a stressful job.
Mhm.
Whenever I'm overly stressed, then I have them. But before that, it was over a year I haven't had them. I'm claiming my healing. I used to have headaches, these severe migraines. It wasn't a matter of if you had a headache, it was how severe it was. These headaches are gone every day. I'm growing. They found I had brain hemorrhaging. The bleeding is gone. Where did it go?
Mhm.
I'm healing.
Jesus.
I'm not depressed the way that I used to be. I'm
Mhm.
claiming my victory. I'm
Mm.
going after what God told me to go after because you see, I'm not going to stand before him and he'd be like, you know what? You were responsible for some souls. I gave you the tools.
Mm.
What happened?
Mhm.
Because you couldn't move out of your own way?
Mhm.
I sent my son to take on all of those issues. You chose not, and we ain't even gonna go there. I don't want him to take it away from me.
There are some women listening to this. I know there's a soul out there that's hearing this and really probably leaning in on your every word. And you know who you are out there. Thousands of women listen to this show. What can you say to her?
Sis, I know what you're going through because I've been there. You do not have to do this alone. You are not alone. And I'm not going to lie to you. It's not going to be easy. It's not easy. You feel worthless. I know you do, but you are more than worthy. You are more than enough. I would have to tell you, she who kneels before God can stand before anyone. That within and of itself is powerful. Get up. Start praying. Start praying, and he's going to open up a door some way, somehow. You don't even have to ask how. He'll do it. I know it's hard to trust because your trust has been betrayed by the person who's supposed to love you the most, or you thought he was going to love you the most. Sometimes we make wrong decisions or wrong mistakes. Stop saying you're sorry. You don't have to be sorry. He already knew this was going to happen before you even knew it was going to happen. He's made a way for you out of the situation. That's the first thing I'm going to tell you. Start praying about it. And I can promise you, just as sure as I'm sitting here looking at you, the way has already been made. The
Mm.
way has already been made. Contact me if you need a prayer. Contact me if you need an escape route. And don't think that you could do it by yourself because you can't. Sometimes these things are tricky, but I can help you. I've helped others. And I promise you, I'm there. No judgments made because that's something else. They're going to judge me. Don't worry about the next
Don't worry
person.
about
It's
that.
about you right now. You.
I love what you just said. In fact, for those of you who are listening, on the show page, and if you're driving, don't look now, but later on the show page are all of Divine's links leading to ways that you can reach out and contact her. And I also hope that you've put a donation link on the page also for those who want to give to your movement of helping women be delivered from the throes of domestic abuse. And people might say, well, why are you covering this? Because you're supposed to be all about wellness. And this is why I'm covering this, because if you're not emotionally well, you're not well. I don't care how great you eat, how much you work out. If you're being emotionally or physically abused, you're not well. And wellness is all about a mind, body, spirit connection. And along our life and our journey, there are times when we kind of fall off the wagon in one of those. It's very rarely that we got it all down perfectly. It's a process. You're a work in process. No one should, especially yourself, expect for things to be perfect in all areas all the time. But what you should be expecting is that you are taking responsibility for navigating your ship. You're
Hmm.
responsible for stopping at the island of the mind and seeing what's going on there and what you need to adjust. You're responsible for dropping by the island of the body, seeing what that needs. And you're responsible for making sure the island of the spirit is alive and vibrant. So as you're taking those journeys to those islands, stop in and check in with yourself. And it's funny, you can fool everybody else, but you can't fool yourself. You can't. The honesty is right there looking in your face. But the reality is, there's probably millions of divines out there who are waiting to help women go through what they went through. Their wisdom is one thing, but their life experience, what they
Yeah.
went through, automatically puts you in a safety zone of understanding without having to explain every single thing, because that can be so exhausting. So, Divine, thank you so much for sharing this part of your life with us. It's been wonderful having you here today.
Pleasure is all mine.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you to all of you for tuning in. I hope that you've enjoyed this. And, I am so blessed every time you click on whatever that thing is on your phone or computer. All of them are different now, and actually land on this podcast. Please make sure you comment, like, and share the podcast and subscribe. That way, you'll get notified every single time I have a podcast. I usually drop podcasts every Tuesday, but sometimes I drop them in between when I find something that I really want to talk about. It's been wonderful having you here today. Don't forget to read the show notes. There's a couple of surprises in there for you. And probably within the next couple of podcasts, I'm going to be talking more and more about that surprise that I've been working on for 17 years. Finally, ready to launch this membership program. I'm so excited. The V.I.B.E Wellness Woman Network. If you want to find out more about that, just go to vibewellnesswoman.com and go ahead and sign up so that you can be notified when the network comes. We're going to be having so much great information that's going to help you to vibe. And you know what that is, everybody, to be more vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered in midlife. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye, everybody. Okay, good. Great. So now we're going to go into the bonus interview. How was that for you? I hope I didn't get too.
Excellent.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Thank you, Jesus. All right. Divine, thank you so much for sharing. And for those of you in our V.I.B.E network community, if you haven't listened to the podcast, it's right there. Go ahead and listen to the podcast. But for those of you who are going to the bonuses first and then deciding if you want to listen, I know you do that. I'm going to listen to the bonus to see if I want to do the whole podcast. But I'm telling you, the bonuses are one thing, but you really need to listen to the whole podcast. I like to ask the ladies that I interview, how do you like to vibe? How do you stay vibrant? How do you enhance your intuition? How do you keep that beauty radiating from the inside out? And how do you stay empowered, especially in midlife?
That's a good question. You know what? To be honest, that's something that I'm actually trying to learn I got to get with you to work on. I got to get into the gym. I need to do better with my eating. And that's something that I'm actually trying to work on. My kids keep me vibed up. I don't know if that's such a good thing. I'm 47 and I haven't really been doing anything independently.
Mhm.
It's always been about my kids and my dog. And
Mhm.
I'm ready to step out and do something on my own. I like getting my nails done. Haven't had the money to do that.
Mhm.
I'm ready to step out and do that. I love dressing up,
Mhm.
perfume and stuff like that. I'm a
Mhm.
girly girl. So stuff like that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think it's important for women to be honest and vulnerable in terms of where they are in their lives, because I have a lot of experts that come on here and they give some great responses to that answer.
Mhm.
But I tell you, I know all of us got something that we're working on, something that's not quite right, because it's life, right? Nothing's perfect. And when I think about the whole idea of vibe, how that came to be, I was on one of my walks and, at a crossroads, trying to decide what I was going to do next. And always when I get to these crossroads, and in 17 years, I've probably been to the crossroads 17 times. And every time I get to that crossroad, am I going to still do this? Am I going to still do it? And I thought, gee, there's something missing. There's something more I want to say. And then I realized, okay, wellness is one thing, nutrition, fitness, holistic practices, spiritual renewal, that all sounds good. But really, I want to do something that's going to help raise women's vibrations, raise their spirits, raise their can-do ability that we all have innately in us. Women, you know this. We are soldiers.
Oh,
We
yes.
are. And, I said, I want to raise their vibe. And I thought, vibe. And it came to me just like that. It was a God thing. It was a God way. He said, vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, empowered. I said, yes, that's what I want midlife women to be. Because so many times as we age, society in general has this thing about, well, you're over 50, it's a little late for that. Aren't you a little old for this? That kind of thing. And I'm here to tell you, Davine's a great example. It's never too late, right, Davine?
That's right. That's right.
It's
It isn't.
never too late to vibe. So you may be on that journey, but my thing is just as long as you're on the journey.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, there are some women, unfortunately, and this, and this is true, y'all. It's true, that just have given up. They just bring the grandbabies over. I'll take care of them. I'll make you the fried chicken and the sweet potato. All of that. You know, blood pressure up to here, weight out to there. No happiness in terms of their individual happiness. Their happiness is in their grandbabies. I'm telling you. I have 6 grandbabies and I love them to death, but my validation is not there.
Yes.
Okay? When I think about vibe, I also think about validation. V for validation. Sometimes we have a tendency to look for validation outside of ourselves. But if you are in the midst of the vibe, that validation is all about you.
Yes.
And what it is that you believe in and what it is that that you need to do. And when I think about I for intuition, I also think about intelligence. The idea of actually going out and finding out what it is that you need to do to vibe, and then acting on it, right? Because isn't that right, Divine? You can get so much information. I got the best self-help books. I took this webinar. I did all this stuff. And then it's like, now what?
Yes.
But acting on that knowledge, they say knowledge is power, but acting on that knowledge is powerful.
Yes.
And when I think of the B for beauty, I really do think about bounty, being bountiful, or some people might call it abundance. I feel that we as midlife women, we have a lot of bounty within us, life experience, good and bad. It's so much different than being 20 something, isn't it?
It's true. Yes.
Girl, at 20 something, I was an empty vessel. I just didn't know it.
My knees weren't cracking like this.
That's true too. Yeah, that's different. And empowerment is wonderful, but you know what? I think midlife is an opportunity to be enthusiastic about life in a different way because you're moving out of a zone. Hopefully, by the time you get to 45, 50, 55, the kids are growing up, the diapers are on, they can cook for themselves if you need them to, wash their own clothes, do stuff that frees up time for you to do stuff for you.
You would hope that's where they're going.
Yeah. Divine, what are the ages of your children?
Let's see, I got 30, 26, 25, 21, and then my twins are 13.
Oh, girl, yeah. Those first 4, they should be lunch, girl.
Yeah, my 26-year-old thinks he's my man.
Okay.
Cooking that's for women. I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. We got the
that's it's a wonderful thing. Or either launch, or at least maybe they're up at the launching pad. Maybe they still have to build the thing that they're going to launch from, but at least they're moving in that direction. And even if your children aren't, there still has to be a point in time where you draw the line and say, okay, that's your journey that you're on right now. There's nothing I can do to change it because you are a grown-ass person.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
I was trying to be a helicopter parent for my kids that were in their 30s, okay? But when they started moving out of state and getting married, and having kids and buying houses and paying taxes like me, I can't do all of that for 4 grown women. And it wasn't like they needed me. It was just this whole idea. I felt like I still needed to, be in the mix, fix stuff,
Yep.
and that's not always what it's about. Part of being in that vibe is realizing that it's time to let go so they can continue to grow and experience like you did.
Yep. That's where I'm at.
Or yeah, so for those other ones that might be walking towards the, launch pad, kind of push them along.
I'm gonna push him along, all right.
Divine, thank you so much for being on here on the bonus interview for our community. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know that you're going to raise the awareness of so many.
I appreciate you so much. I thank you. I truly do. Joe, beautiful self.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. See you at the next bonus interview. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the V.I.B.E Living Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and share this podcast. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye, everybody.